I'm Matt.
And I'm Nate.
And this is Not Quite Religious, a podcast where a Christian pastor and former evangelical turned atheist have conversations about faith, religion, philosophy, and life while drinking coffee.
Welcome to episode 7, where we're going to hear a little bit heavier on Matt's side of the aisle about Christianity and truth and beauty and why he is a Christian. And then I think next episode we're going to follow it up with not necessarily my rebuttal, but my take on why atheism is true and beautiful and why I follow it. And just quickly before we start, I want to say my toddler is home today, which was not planned. So there's a 2.5-year-old named Bash sitting in the other room at this point, happily watching Paw Patrol. That may change at any moment. So just if you hear a baby in the background, that's mine.
He's cute though.
Thanks. Yeah, we like him. He is in like the terrible 2 phase. And he's either like really adorable and precious or like slapping you in the face, which is really fun. I also just want to let people know we haven't met in 3 weeks.
I think it's 2, but it might be 3.
I think it was 3. Because like a break after Easter, and then the 2 weeks ago, I forget why we didn't meet, and then you had COVID last week. We were really like pushing it to meet today, so we had a podcast for tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, I think this is the one that's gonna drop tomorrow.
So. Less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
So I am glad that we had the foresight to do multiple podcasts in a row. Oh, and we should shout out the coffee.
Yeah, the coffee is Mocha Joe's roasting from Brattleboro, Vermont, where I live, and which is my favorite coffee in the world. And this particular roast that I brewed this morning is the dark roast Costa Rica.
Yeah, it's pretty tasty. So I had the Omar coffee set to go because I thought I was going to finish since the last time, and I probably should have, but I actually wasn't drinking a lot of coffee. So I'm glad you brought something different, and I hope our listeners will, pick up a bag online or whatever.
Yeah.
The coffee beans are grown in balmy Brattleboro, I'm assuming.
Right.
Yeah.
And it has nothing at all to do with, for those of you who watch, what's the Larry David show?
I'm terrible with celebrity names.
Oh,
who's Larry David?
Oh, the Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, okay.
There's a Mocha Joe's on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and they have nothing to do with each other. And in fact, the Mocha Joe's that we're drinking this morning existed before Curb Your Enthusiasm was a thing. They don't know about each other. It's just a crazy coincidence. But
awesome.
Anyway. So yeah, me and Christianity. Nate, did you happen to see my Facebook post yesterday?
I did. I did read it in preparation for today, and wish I could say I remember it more. But I was up at 5 a.m. yesterday with a teething toddler, who was like ready and raring to go. It wasn't like the 5 a.m. where they sit down with you and zone out. He was like pop boop boop pop boop. So
yeah. So I like the way that this question is framed. The way that we've been talking about it is, why does Matt think Christianity is beautiful?
Yeah, and I think we should shout out to Dave, who we've shouted out to before, because he was the one who actually said what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Is, why do you believe atheism is beautiful? And
right.
I was like, well, we can frame that for Christianity too. Like, why do you think Christianity is beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think, because we don't want this to be a apologetic, counter-apologetic podcast.
Yeah,
all the time. And I think there probably will be some of that here and there. But that's not the purpose of this. So talking about why is a capital T true without first talking about why it's beautiful doesn't necessarily make sense, I think.
Well, I found it, nevertheless, because it's an atheist and a Christian trying to have casual conversation about something that they disagree on. And the thing that they disagree on is not about whether, they should roll Ford or Chevy, but about the fundamental nature of the universe. It's hard for it not to get into apologetics, and the context is already, for me, felt like immediately in defense mode, and I don't mean that in any negative connotation. It's just like it's hard not to feel like you're here defending atheism, I'm here defending
Right.
Christianity. But to ask like Christianity is beautiful seems like more of a positive question.
Yeah.
Like just, and I wanted to approach it as if a person I didn't know anything about asked me, not an atheist,
Sure.
Or a skeptic. And so I didn't answer the question in such a way as to assuage anyone's skepticism. I simply was like, this is why it's beautiful and relevant to me. So let me define what Christianity is for me. Christianity is a story, and the practices associated with taking that story is true. Prayer, church, service to others, and Christianity believed and practiced, brings the believer or the practitioner into an experience of profound meaning, unexplainable peace, overwhelming joy in an otherwise dark world. So the story is pretty familiar at this point. It's a religion that's 2 millennia old, and of course we all know where it starts. It starts with Jesus, who Christians confess to be the eternal Son of God, co-equal with the Creator in substance, in time, to the point that we could say Jesus is God himself, which is admittedly a mystery. How can a man be God? How can someone who's finite be eternal? How can God who is one be two, let alone three? But we believe and confess that Jesus mysteriously was fully God, fully human, in every way like us, experienced humanity in the same ways that we experience humanity, except without sin, which I take also to be a mystery. How someone could live a sinless life and still be considered human, because we don't really know humans like that. And here's another point that people might disagree with me on, but I would frame it this way: Jesus had opportunity to sin, but he didn't.
Yeah, I don't know if most of the Christians I know would disagree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, he hung out with prostitutes.
Right. Right. The question, I guess, is terms of temptation.
Sure.
Like people, it seems like a really minute theological thing, but it's things that have been debated. Like at the point of temptation, was Jesus ever like, that sounds good, or is his divine nature mean that he had no premonition?
I mean, at least when I was in seminary, and it was a really conservative seminary, they taught that the temptation was real or it wouldn't be real.
Yeah, that's my take.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think some Gnostics, in what the church would later call like early first, second century heretics, would say, no, there was no temptation because he was on such a different plane. And I think the Orthodox Church, at least through history, has said, no, it has to be a real temptation, or humanity is so different from ours, it's wholly other.
Right.
Yeah.
It has to be a real temptation, or there's no conquering of sin.
Yeah. I also wanted to, just from my perspective, if you are a prostitute and you're listening, I don't think you're in sin. So I just want to... Christians can disagree with me on that. We can also disagree how you get into sex work and what that means for systematic injustice and things like that. But if you're a prostitute, I don't think you're a bad person.
Thanks, Nate.
And there's the podcast title.
That's the title for the day. Why Matt thinks Christianity is beautiful and why Nate thinks prostitution is not a sin. A little wordy, but maybe the best title. So Jesus, in not sinning and not giving into sin, and being fully human, reversed Adam, right? and in doing so, I would say reoriented or restored humanity in his own divine and human self. Now, humanity was already made in the image of God, and Jesus reoriented, uncorrupted that nature, and so Jesus calls his followers his body, another mystery, and just as Jesus is mysteriously God, he is also mysteriously us. So we are, to keep using that word, mysteriously in him, human beings, we are not ourselves. Though this is often hidden and veiled in humanity and flesh. I would say Jesus is our highest potential. So the good deeds that pour forth from human beings, in authentically human ways, the moments of kindness and courage and love, I think these are expressions of Jesus. They're expressions of true humanity. They're expressions of Jesus in us. And not only is Jesus our goodness, he's also our frailty. He's our weakness. He's our poverty. He's the oppression in our societies. The frailty and weakness and poverty and oppression in each of us that's calling out to God to not be forsaken, calling out for justice, calling out for resurrection. And by grace, by free gift of Jesus even coming to earth, this is what we are. We are with him and in him, crucified and risen like him. We are the redeemed, the chosen, and the eternal. And we see Jesus, we see Christ in our daily struggles, our Gethsemanes, our crosses, in our rejection, in the misunderstanding of friends, in our conflict, in our sufferings. And personally, I find myself not failing to be like Jesus in suffering. That's the way that we're like each other, and that's his suffering is the way in which he's connected to all of us. But what separates Jesus from me is the same thing that separates Jesus from all of the martyrs in his stead, is that I still to this day, and I think most Christians are in this boat with me, lack the courage to go all the way, to love and heal to the point of death, which is what Jesus did. Jesus is in solidarity with all of us through suffering and even death, but few of us reach that level of solidarity with him where we lay our bodies and souls on the line for our friends. But this solidarity, with Jesus, this capacity to love is the thing that we're pursuing in Christianity. So as opposed to thinking of holiness in terms of what I wear, how often I read the Bible, how often I go to church, what sins I abstain from, I think that real biblical holiness is pursuing the kind of all-out love that Jesus exemplifies in the Gospels. So love as defined by the New Testament. There's lots of ways we could define love. Love is defined by the New Testament, I would say, is radical self-emptying, which is different than selflessness, different than self-denial, right? We could talk about
I want to unpack that a little bit. Because for me, like self-emptying, just in the it I don't want to say it's triggering, but I want to say like no,
yeah,
like there's not just pop psychology, but like deep-rooted science, I think, that shows like when you're just constantly emptying yourself and not being filled, or like, how to phrase this, like when I was a Christian, I was not only